Welcome back to the Slice of Empathy podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Kelly, and today's guest is a true expert in unlocking the mind's potential, Brent Webb. Brent is a mind power expert and motivational speaker, headlining programs worldwide at hotels, resorts, casinos, and colleges. He's also worked with Fortune 500 companies like Google, Ford, Nabisco, and Hilton, as well as collaborating with stars such as Joan Rivers, Chaka Khan, Sia, and Dolly Parton. He's even appeared twice at the White House, which is my personal favorite. And for over 2 decades, he has taught people how to use the mindset to achieve more in every area of life, whether it's finances, relationships, or personal growth. He's even internationally known for helping people create lives of prosperity and spiritual awareness. And on top of his career success, Brent has even overcome personal battles with anxiety, addiction, and cancer using the very techniques he teaches to build a multi-million-dollar brand. I'm thrilled to dive into this conversation with Brent Webb. Let's get started. So I'm super excited to have you on. And I was taking a peek at your website and I saw the quote from Bill Clinton. So I thought that was really, really cool. So we'll touch on that because I'm really excited to kind of learn about that. So let's go ahead and start with your work with the incredible superstars that have appeared at prestigious venues like the White House. Can you share what maybe drew you into the world of mind power and motivational speaking?
Yeah, I was an only child. I was born in Ohio. And I wanted to be, as a little kid, I wanted to be a magician. And you know those annoying little kids that, always have a deck of cards that are trying to get you to watch card tricks. So, and again, being an only child, you're always looking for some way to stand out, to differentiate yourself. And it always seems little boys so many times want to become magicians. So I was maybe 9 years old and I would go to the library every weekend and I would take out magic books. And one faded Saturday, I went to the library and on the shelf with the magic books, there was a book called The Magic of Believing. And it was all about the power of the mind. And I grabbed it with the other books and I got it home. And even at 9, I read that book and I thought, wow, there's something bigger here than I ever knew possible. Like there's really a whole universe kind of open to me. So I continued, wanting to be a magician, and I moved into being a mentalist, which is, kind of a magician of the mind. All through my teenage years, I went to college, Kent State, when I was 18, hated it. So I dropped out of college and I went on the road pretty much right away. And I started doing, an opening act for celebrities and doing my own shows. And so I did that for years and years. But then I started to realize, I put that book, The Magic of Believing, to use in my life. Every time I was up against something, I've had cancer, I was drinking a bottle of vodka a day. I was addicted to pain medicine. I was, everything I came up against, I started to realize, these all branch out of mindset issues. And it's really all about the mind. So I started morphing my entertainment show into a hybrid of motivation and entertainment. Now, I've done a lot of corporate events and, like you said, the White House and celebrities. But really, this is the thing that brings me the most joy because it's the thing that shows people what they're capable of. And it kind of, I don't want to say changes lives, but it really does kind of open. It's the same way I felt when I got that book when I was a child. So I've been doing that ever since. Now, I do a lot of motivational speaking and other things, but I just don't do entertainment anymore. There's got to be some sort of mix. Like I'm going next week on a cruise to Alaska and I'm
Nice.
Performing. Yeah, but I'm doing my show in the big theater. And again, it's a lot of motivation, but then I'm doing seminars and, trainings and just really my whole goal now as I'm getting, towards retirement is just to get this message out that, that we are so much more. I mean, we have this huge supercomputer that we just don't know how it works. We're given this thing at birth. You buy a cell phone, a microwave, a toaster, anything you buy comes with a huge manual, right? On how it operates. Here is the most sophisticated supercomputer ever devised. And it's like, figure it out on your own. Nobody can help you do it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm just kind of trying to do what helped me and has helped thousands of people I've worked with all over the world. Now I'm realizing, I've worked with billionaires and millionaires and celebrities, and they don't need this as much anymore because they have assistants and they have accountants and they have personal, managers, and they have people to do all of the little tasks that everyday people have to do. So I'm just getting this word out there that there is so much more. There's another universe out there. You just have to unlock it.
Oh my gosh, that's so true and so perfectly said. And I'm really intrigued by your trip to Alaska because going on a cruise to Alaska is actually on one of my bucket list items. And it's been forever since I've been on a cruise. So that sounds amazing. I'm actually really curious if you could expand on your event at the White House. I'd love to know more about that. And I'm sure our listeners would as well.
Yeah, I've done DNC events years ago. President Obama. I actually did event once for the second President Bush. So it's just once you start doing, it's the same thing with celebrities. Like you work for one diva singer and you're good. And then, Dionne Warwick tells Chaka Khan who tells, you know what I mean? So that's the same thing in politics. Now it's been several years, but it's a weird thing because when you work for a president, what they do, the Secret Service investigates all of your stuff, your props. For me, it's pens and books. It's not like magic, and then you can't touch anything until the show. So in other words, they inspect everything and they take it and they only bring it out right before, to perform, which I guess is so you can't be putting anthrax in some, you know what I mean? So, but it's an odd thing, but I've just found that no matter where I've worked over the years, I mean, from the most powerful people in the world, like a president or a prime minister, or everybody has the same issue, really. It's that they don't understand this amazing brain that they have. They don't understand consciousness. They don't understand giving yourself some time to meditate or whatever it is. The world is getting faster and faster. Our attention span is 7 seconds now. In the 80s, it was 7 minutes. And now that's why you see, like when you're on Instagram or TikTok or something, everything is bright colors moving fast because people are just scrolling through everything with that very quick attention span. So we're living through our screens. I mean, I've even gone to concerts, expensive concerts where, people are watching the show through their phone. They're filming the show, but watching the screen. It's like, what are you doing here? You could have saved $400 and, watch it at home. But that's how we live now. We're in fight or flight mode all the time. Our bodies just are not made for this. It's stress and anxiety overload.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that actually, because, well, fun fact, I teach digital marketing during the week in the evenings. And one of the things that actually came up was like how much time users will spend on something if they click on an ad or, as you're mentioning, scrolling through their phone.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular instance, it was clicking over to a website. And if that website isn't functional, that user is going to click out really quickly. They're not going to want to wait for it to load. So their attention span is very, very short. So I feel like how advanced we've gotten with technology, it's honestly shortened our attention spans. And so, of course, it's going to bring like that important aspect. Okay, our websites need to be functional. We don't want to lose that potential buyer, right? So I appreciate that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, 7 minutes to when I was a teenager, or when in 1988, I would have been 13. We had a 7-minute attention span, and now it's 7 seconds. And I mean, if you think about that, it's unbelievable. I mean, that is such a difference in, what is that, 30 years, 40 years, whatever that is. It's crazy, but we don't understand what's happening to us. And because we're oblivious to it, not only is it happening faster, but it's on such a grander scale, because now the world is connected. The internet has connected everyone, but also made everyone so far away from each other. You know what I mean? It's like everybody thinks they're an expert now. Everybody thinks everybody is very ballsy to get in online arguments. Stuff you would never say to somebody's face.
Oh, it's so true.
You're more than comfortable with saying behind a computer. And so we have this false version of ourselves in our head, but everyone else sees a false version of us too. It's like we act differently with our parents, with our significant other, with our friends, with our peer groups, with our drinking buddies, whoever it is. When you look at it, there's a different you. You put on a different face for those different people. It's because, most people care so much what everyone thinks. We're literally living our lives inside our heads and then wondering, why nothing's changing.
Yeah. And I think it could feel really isolating as well. And yeah, as you were mentioning, like there's like our personas online are 100% different as like compared to like how we talk to someone in real life. And honestly, I'm thinking about something that comes to mind is I feel like a lot of people struggle with imposter syndrome, but then we're also presenting a fake version of ourselves. I'm just curious what you think about like how one might reconcile the two.
Well, you have to understand everything is an illusion. I mean, first of all, social media, everybody wants to be the person that's like, oh my God, their life looks amazing. You don't know how much it took to get that picture, how many different angles, what if the car was rented or if they own, you know what I mean? It's an illusion. And we've taken this idea that, when we're born, the first year and a half of our lives, everything is amazing. And if you think back, you can remember, look, when we were happy, we would laugh. And when we were sad, we would cry. And we lived in the moment, we were real. But then we start to get programmed. And that's exactly what it is. It's like computer programming by our parents and siblings and teachers and the government and what we're watching on TV. It's programming because, your parents start to tell you what they believe in and you start to believe in that. They give you a religion. They give you a name. Boys do this. Girls do this. We can't do this. People that have money are this. And they start creating pretty much your belief system because of what they tell you. And then, so the first 8-9 years of a kid's life, it's like you have a digital recorder in your head. Now, I used to say tape recorder, and people under 30 look at me like, what's a tape recorder? So digital recorder, but it's like, I always say, imagine you've got a recorder running. It's recording everything that you do, that you say, that you like, that you dislike, everything about your life for those first 8-9 years. And then one day you're about 9 and the tape just stops. The tape's full. It stops. Now for the rest of your life, that is the tape that's going to run in your head when you're on autopilot. And think about this. We're on autopilot 80% of the day. That's when you're thinking about something else, thinking about the past, worried about the future, thinking about what you got to do tonight, arguing with your spouse in your mind, whatever you're doing, your subconscious kicks in. And that is the old rusty tape that is not only running in the background, but it's what's destroying our lives because it's all the stuff you created when you were a child. So if it was things like, I'm not good enough, I'm too ugly, rich people are evil, whatever it is, that false belief system has created your belief system as an adult. So, I tell people it wasn't your fault. It's none of our faults as children, but now that we're adults, it is our responsibility to get in there and figure out what that programming is.
Exactly.
Because it is the most, it's such BS. And I tell people, a great way, because I always like to give actionable steps. There's so many people that have all these programs and courses, and that's fine. But, we've got to give people actionable steps that they can actually do. You can start doing today. I tell people one great thing, and I've done this for years, is name the voice in your head. Now, I call it the bitchy roommate. I mean, that's what this concept is, because you're trapped in a room with someone who is torturing you pretty much. I mean, think about what your mind says to you. It says the most horrible things. It reminds you of all those horrible times from your past. In fact, our minds can be such enemies that it can have you kill yourself. Nobody has ever committed suicide without your mind telling you to do it. Think about it. That's how much of an enemy your mind can become. So you have to start figuring out what is going on up there. So by naming the voice, and I called mine Carl a long time ago. And it's just funny because what it does, we think of that voice as like the booming voice of God or the voice of the future, or it's some kind of warning. It's just the past. It's a mechanism. There's two voices in the head. There's the voice you can make talk, like if you're trying to figure out something or if you're using that process. But then there's the voice that just pops up and says, remember the time you peed your pants at your birthday party when you were 7 and embarrassed, right? And for no reason, supposedly, this has come up into your mind. That's the voice that's the bitchy roommate. That's the voice that's there to kind of throw up things from your past that are similar to whatever is happening in the present. So in other words, if your uncle was mean to you when you were a kid and now you're walking down the street and a guy's coming towards you that looks like your uncle, all of a sudden, all those feelings rush back up and you feel, you get a feeling in the pit of your stomach. You start to get sweaty because you've stored all that stuff away and you've triggered it now to come up. It's like when people say, don't go there with me. That means you're getting close to something I've stored inside myself. Yeah. We can't talk about that with your father. Yeah, exactly. You're getting close to something. So by naming the voice, when the voice starts talking and you say, oh, there's Carl again, it takes all the power away. It takes all the sting away. It's no longer this premonition of the future. It's a petulant little child who's not getting his way. And so when you look at it like that, again, the power starts to dissipate from it. So that's the first thing. Name the voice in your head. Then when it starts and you notice that it's going, you laugh at it, in your head. You just say, oh, there's Carl again. And you just look at it like a kid. The other thing is you get some Post-it notes, put them around the house, in the car, in the office, whatever. Make a happy face, put the name of your voice. So Carl, I put Carl's voice everywhere, just his name. Now, when I see that, one of those Post-it notes, that's my trigger. So say for a week, I'm going to do this. I'm going to carry a spiral pad, a small one in my pocket and a pen. Now, every time I see one of those Post-it notes throughout my day, that's my trigger. I'm going to stop and I'm going to see what's on my mind right then. And that way you can find out, because even though your mind's going, if you stop immediately, you'll know what's going on up there. That awareness changes everything. Because most people go through their entire life without ever being aware that they're anything else than I'm just this person. This is me, this human being. This is my life. They don't realize the connection to consciousness, to human consciousness. So this awareness changes the game because it now allows you to figure out what's going on up there. And you don't judge. That's important. You don't judge what the voice is saying. You don't get upset. You certainly don't get sucked into it. You don't debate it. What you do is you just stop and write it down. And then at the end of the week, you're going to take out your little spiral notepad. You're going to open it up and you are going to read 7 days of the most screwed up, unhelpful BS that you have ever heard of in your life. And what will happen is the hold that it's had over you will start to loosen, because it's like anything big and bad that you drag out into the light. It just doesn't hold up anymore because it was built when we weren't mature, when we were, under 10 years of age. And maybe it was a mechanism, a survival mechanism for some people. But now as an adult, it's like, I got to figure out what's going on up there. And so awareness is really the first thing you got to do.
Oh, I love that you mentioned that, because I feel like that's like the biggest thing that most people struggle with is awareness. And I feel like many of us, especially like even myself included, at least up until a certain age, we don't really think to unpack all of these different things. And I feel like it kind of takes us to another level of consciousness once we do become self-aware, as you were mentioning, like that voice in our head telling us these different things and becoming aware of it. Once we're able to kind of master that technique, we'll be so much better off.
Yeah. And you know what else? It pulls you into the present moment by doing that, because what's happening when the subconscious is going, you're not in the present moment. You're somehow either living in the past or you're off in the future. And what's terrifying about all of it is, in a normal day, you're on autopilot 80% of the time. So think about it. Okay. That's a lot, but that's not the most terrifying thing. To me, it's the fact that during that day, 40% of the time, you're in the past, which means you're thinking about something that already happened. You're wishing you could have changed it. If I had done this, that wouldn't have happened. If I hadn't have told him that, he wouldn't have left, or whatever you're doing, you're in the past. You're playing this game in the past. So that's 40%. You're living 40% of that day in the future, which is all the things you don't want to happen. Try to make sure they don't happen. All the things you're wishing and hoping that are going to happen, you want to try to make happen. So you're doing that. And that leaves you 20% of the time in this moment. And this is really the magic moment. This is your entrance to making any kind of transformation, because the past is over. It's gone. It's untouchable. You can't change it, but we're always trying to do it. And the future, this is what people find so hard to understand. It's like, this moment is all that matters. When the future gets here, it will be opening up in this moment. And the past, when it was happening in this moment, right in front of you. So the past and the future are abstracts to this idea that we're here right now, but nobody ever wants this moment. It's like you're making a cup of coffee. You don't want the moment when you're making it. You want the moment when you're drinking it.
Right.
It's Wednesday night and I'm going out Friday night with my friends. I don't want Wednesday and Thursday. I want it to be Friday. So you're always putting happiness. You're always putting the solution ahead of us. That's what we do. So we just aimlessly chase after it. We're like on a hamster wheel the whole time. So yeah, just becoming aware. I swear, I think 75% of the journey is over when you start becoming aware, because it's running you on autopilot. And when you start questioning, why am I triggered by this? Why is this happening? What is the voice saying? That awareness gets you 75% of the way. I mean, seriously, you are close just by that.
Oh, 100%. And you're mentioning spending such a good chunk of time focusing on the past. And I know many of us, of course, are guilty of that. And I've done it myself. May have been like situations where I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I did X, Y, and Z differently? And that could have changed this. And it's just like, we're fighting this losing battle. And the thing has already happened and there's no going back, but that doesn't change that our natural response is to be like, well, if I had said this or if I had done that, maybe I would have had a different outcome. But it's really challenging. And I'm sure like many of our listeners have probably struggled with this too. But I'm curious, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced on your personal journey?
Well, like I said, when I was a kid, I just had severe anxiety and stress, and I never did understand why. And so as I became an entertainer and a speaker, and I've been in every country in the world. I've been to Antarctica. The only place I'd never been was Antarctica, and I did a cruise around there a few years ago. So no matter where I was, it could be 3 a.m. I'd wake up and it'd be in Spain or something. I would just be flop sweat, full dread. not knowing what is happening to me and why this is happening. So again, I started putting mindset to use in my life. And one of the smartest things I ever did was I got paid to go all over the world and perform, but I took that time in all these different places to meet spiritual teachers and to meet religious leaders and to meet thought leaders and presidents, prime ministers, celebrities, but successful people that especially athletes. I've worked with, like the Cleveland Browns, they bring me in to speak to the team, or the Dodgers. But I've realized, there are certain athletes that, like Kobe Bryant was a great example of this. He had laser focus. He had the ability to work through something, get the power back from that, and focus it where it mattered, constantly pulling back his focus. One thing people don't understand is, in order to get in control of your mind, you have to start being in control of where you're focusing, where you are putting your energy and your focus. And when somebody says focus, how do you focus? Most people don't know. I mean, I remember in elementary school, and a teacher told me, Brent, you need to learn to focus. And why aren't you focusing? And I said, when did we learn to focus? Like, I don't remember that day. And she admitted that we never learned it. And she didn't really know, because nobody ever teaches us. Like I said, it's like you're thrown into the deep end with this amazing computer. You don't know how it works. When you, as a human, or as a soul, having a human experience, I think is a better way to say it. But wherever we are here, you're in this body, in this meat suit. You're hurtling through space on you're on a rock, hurtling through space, and you're worried about what Mary thinks of your dress. You're worried about, what your neighbors are going to think of your car. It's like the most crazy stuff when you think about it. So you just start to put, like I said, I've had cancer. It was a mindset thing. You have stage 3 lymphoma, and I was alone out on the road performing, and it's like, you get overcome with fear. The voice in your head starts, oh my God, you're dead. Right. Everything. I mean, I've been broke. I've been a millionaire. I've been addicted to pain pills. I've been addicted to alcohol. I thought my whole life money was the thing. I mean, when I was a little kid in the 80s, which was the me decade, which was all about get rich and, big money and Wall Street and all that stuff, I thought that was happiness. Like when you make $1 million and when you make money, you're going to be happy. So if you're miserable now, that is going to make you happy. So my whole life was working towards that. And I'll tell you, when I got that stuff and I got the house and I got the car, I wasn't happy. And then I started drinking and I started popping pain pills. And seriously, it sounds so stupid, but it's like your whole life, when you think what is going to make you happy, you attain it and you realize it's nothing. It's an illusion. It's hollow. And then I got into alcohol, and then I got into pain pills. I was doing 30, 40 pain pills a day at my peak, and still touring the world and still delivering this message. But it was an illusion. So I just started tackling one thing at a time, whether it be cancer, whether it be alcohol. I haven't touched a drink in way over 10 years. Even after I had cancer, I started smoking. Now, what idiot gets cancer and then starts smoking? I didn't even smoke before, but I started smoking after. And so I haven't smoked in over 10 years. But it's like each thing we're faced with, and it doesn't matter if it's relationships, it doesn't matter if it's health, because so many times we are not at ease with ourselves. And that's what dis-ease is, a disease. You're not at ease. And so stress is killing us. I mean, it's causing heart problems. It's causing strokes. It's causing people to literally, this generation of people have shorter lifespans sometimes than our parents because of what's happening. It looks like it's an easier life, but it's not. It's like, you think because everything's on a phone, I can order everything off of apps and, it's just incredible, right? It's really not, because it's more isolating than ever, because there's no physical interaction. And so where you would have some time, you should have some time now, right? There's less physical interaction. So I'll work on myself. We don't even do that. We spend all our time on the phone looking at everyone else's life and not giving ourselves a second look. So everything I've done, everything I've taught people to do, I've had thousands of students over the years that have done these things. I just realized it comes down to 3 things. And I told you already what awareness is the first, but I always talk about the ABCs of mind power. Awareness is the A, the B is belief, because think about how many people, they just don't believe they can have what they want. They don't believe they deserve it. They don't believe that money is for someone like them. If your parents said money is for evil people, or you have to work your ass off to get any kind of money in this world, or, the deck is stacked against us, or whatever that is, you have to start cultivating belief in yourself. And like I said, The Magic of Believing was the book that did it for me, but that's really what it is. Belief is a magic power. And Joan Rivers believed in it. Phyllis Diller, another famous comedian, believed in it, that you have this this ability by what you're allowing yourself to focus on, what you're allowing yourself to think. If you're wallowing in negativity all the time, I don't buy so much of the law of attraction for the idea that I want a Ferrari. I'm going to sit on the sofa and I'm just going to think about it. It's going to be in the driveway. But the idea, the law of attraction, I believe it's your mind. It is some magic thing. You're connected to the universal consciousness. When you really start believing in yourself, when you're aware of what's going on, you're changing your programming, you start to believe you deserve the things that you want, and you really look at what you want. Not because most people, I want to be rich. That's not a goal. That's just a generalization.
Right.
It's like a daydream. You've got to know what it is you want. And you got to believe that you can have it. And so what's great about, I call them the ABCs of mind power. The A is awareness, and they build on each other, and they have to be done in this order. You start becoming aware, Post-it notes, name the voice. Now you're starting to become aware what the voice is saying. It's laughable. It's a joke. Then it starts to cultivate belief, because now you realize that, you've given everyone else second, third, 314th chances, but you've not done that for yourself. You can go to prison for bank robbery, be out in 10 years, and it's fine. Your mind never lets you off the hook for anything you've ever done. If you allow it to do it, it's going to torture you forever. You never get paroled from that. So you start believing in yourself and believing in letting go of what's come before, and believe what's going to happen in the future is going to happen because of what you're doing now. It's not going to happen magically by what you're wishing for. It's going to happen because you're looking at your goals, you're feeling it, you've got the end game in mind. And without that, the idea of a goal, knowing exactly what you want, it's not going to happen. And then finally, the C, and I think is the most important, and it's last because it has to be, because each builds, but is connection. The idea, first of all, that we're all connected, this illusion, this lie that we're separate, that they create to make us divide against each other. It's like man versus woman, gay, straight, black, white. It's all this division instead of we're all connected, universal consciousness, we're connected to each other. But the most important connection is the connection you have with yourself. So I tell people, you've got to do something where you're sitting connected to yourself in silence. Meditation, I do 40 minutes twice a day, morning, night, every day. I don't miss it no matter what. And with my schedule, if I'm doing something for 80 minutes a day, I'm doing it because it has got tremendous benefits, because I'm not going to waste 80 minutes a day. It's like having a sanctuary inside yourself. And so when you go in, you connect to your inner wisdom. You connect to the soul you connect to universal consciousness. And so all of that noise from the outer world starts to go away. You've got this chatter going. And what's great about meditation is it's not about silencing the voice at the beginning. Now, the voice will silence eventually when you keep up with this. But at the beginning, what you're going to do, it's like amazing, the red flags, because now if you're sitting there, and you got your eyes closed and you've got your feet flat on the floor, hands on your knees, all I tell people to do, set your phone for 5 minutes when you start and just count 1 to 20 over and over in your head. That's it. Because what happens is if you're going 1, 2, 3, boy, my butt is sore. Why am I sitting here? All you do without judging the thought, without going into the thought, you immediately go back to 1. And again, silently in your head, 2, 3, 4. Wonder what I'm going to have for lunch today. And you realize you're doing it. 1. And you keep doing that. If you get to 67, you've gone too far. You go back to 1. No judgment. You don't get mad at yourself, and you definitely don't get pulled into it. But what that does, and this is amazing, it's over time, you're building focus like it's a muscle. It's like going to the gym. You're going to the mind gym, because what you're doing is you're pulling back your focus constantly. And when you start, I don't care if you sit for 5 minutes and you have to pull back your focus 50 times. It's not for nothing, because every time you do it, it strengthens your ability to focus. Because what we do, and this is what you have to understand as human beings, as people having this human experience, what we do is when something great happens, like an amazing kiss, or we're seeing an amazing sunset somewhere, we want to keep that. We want that image. We want that feeling that it's giving us. So we keep it. We hold it inside with willpower. And that's what we do. And then next time you're on that street where you saw that sunset or whatever, and then the feelings start to rise back up again because, I'm near where I saw that sunset, right? So we do that. But the worst part of all of it is we do the same thing with the things we don't want. So it's like the embarrassing moments, the sad moments, the breakups, all of that stuff. They're painful, but they're not meant to be stored inside. It's like an episode of Hoarders. You have taken everything you don't like and you've stored it inside you. And to do that, it holds it in there with willpower. So say you break up with your girlfriend and she drives a red Ford pickup truck. Now, every time, what's going to happen? You're on the road and you see a red Ford pickup truck. All the feelings rush back. All the thoughts come back. You get sick in your stomach. And that happens all the time with all these different things. If you're afraid of spiders or snakes, if you're whatever it is, you have built this entire illusionary self in you, and you're holding all of these likes and dislikes in you with willpower. Every time, and that's what I was saying about athletes, every time you release something, you get that little bit of willpower back. And then a real successful person focuses it where it matters. So they take it back and focus that willpower where it matters. And they just do that constantly and over again. That's how you create a real successful person, a real person who understands, how it works. So you can't get there without some form of meditation. Now, I think connection, it could be chanting, because I'm a Buddhist. I also chant, but I think sitting silently is important because you connect to a part of yourself that you're never quiet enough to listen to. Even when you go to sleep at night, you're not listening, you are listening to all the things that your voice is saying about tomorrow and all the bad things that happened today. And then when you wake up tomorrow, it's just a continuation of the day before because you are literally marinating all night long in the thoughts that you go to sleep with. So the last part of the night before you go to sleep, the first thing in the morning, those are the most important parts of the day as far as being close to your subconscious. Without being in meditation, that's the only other way you're really going to get in there is very first thing in the morning, you're between sleep and awake, and the very last thing at night. So don't go to sleep thinking about all your problems and thinking about all the horrible things that are going to happen tomorrow. Go to sleep thinking about the life that you're creating, that the things that you want to make happen, and go to sleep feeling that way. And when you wake up, now it's a different day. It's not the same day 84 times in a row or whatever.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that actually, because I feel like for me, I know, and many of this friend circle that we call ourselves the dream team. And so we're very much of the mindset of trying to learn more, connect about ourselves via the subconscious. And so the night before we go to bed, as you were mentioning, we don't want to go to bed with these filled with all these negative thoughts because then it kind of translate over into our dream state. And then when we wake up, we might be feeling kind of anxious, kind of nervous versus utilizing this time to be more connected with oneself. Because in the very early stages of waking up is when I feel the most connected with my true self. And as you're mentioning, each new day, it's going to be a new day. And so we want to go to bed and wake up if we're having a bad day before, we don't want to carry that over to the next day. For me, sometimes if I'm going through something and I get a good night's rest and I wake up the next day, usually that next day is so much better. But I love being able to connect with the subconscious to really feel connected with myself. And I feel that's something that so many people can relate to. And that's a whole other thing because we kind of go back to that self-awareness. And many folks, of course, will be I don't remember my dreams, or I don't remember what I think about, or things like that. But it's really such a good opportunity if we are able to connect with ourselves in that way to really learn more about ourselves.
For sure. The human mind is, I did a podcast earlier this morning or earlier today, and we were talking about this because I said, this is how incredible the human mind is. Seriously, it is the most sophisticated supercomputer. I mean, one of the things your mind will do is if you're really struggling with something. Now, a lot of people have deep-seated issues. Say your parents died when you were a child. They died in a car accident, right? And you've never been able to process it. And so those things, like I said, seeing a sunset, being afraid of a snake, those are just energy patterns that are trying to move through us. It happens all day long. You're driving down the road, all those white lines, all that's just energy, and they pass through. But we take the things we really like, we keep them. We take the things we really don't like, and we keep them. And so what we've done is we've taken the energy, we've stored it inside, and we've trapped it. It will not leave. It's trying to leave. And you know how you can tell when it's coming back up and you're feeling that? But what do? We push it back down again. It's that's your red flag. That's your trigger. It's coming up because it wants to leave. It does not want to be there. It wants to pass through you. So those are amazing red flags, because when you feel that, when all those feelings come rushing back, that is a gift, because it's showing you what you need to be looking at in your life that you can start making immediate change. And in meditation, I've realized over the years, a lot of things will leave you. And the reason, what I was saying about the mind being incredible, is many times your mind will create a metaphor and you'll dream about it. So, for instance, your parents died when you were a kid, say, and they died in a car accident. You've never processed it. So now you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever. And all of a sudden you're dreaming about two eagles flying, near a mountain. They're free and they're breaking into the clouds and all this. And you wake up, you're crying and you're sobbing and you don't know why. Your mind is so ingenious. It's creating a metaphor to get you through and get you past some of the past of your parents by creating a dream that's just a metaphor for that. That's why you'll read books that are that tell you what dreams mean, because a lot of times it's not the train that you're dreaming about, right? It's the tunnel means something else. So your mind is so incredible, it will create a metaphor to get you to release the things you need to release. And in meditation, things will pop up all the time. I'll be crying. I don't know why. Things are leaving you. If you go to see a therapist, I talked to somebody last week. I said, what day is your therapy? They said, every Thursday. I said, how do you feel Thursday night? Well, not great. Why? Because you drudged it all up again. You felt it. And the thing is, your body doesn't know whether you're doing something in real time live or just feeling it from the past. Because as far as your body's concerned, everything's exactly the same. That's why when I work with sports teams and teach them how to envision the games in their mind, they oftentimes do much better without doing any sort of physical practice because they're practicing inside their mind. They're doing it. Your mind doesn't know. It honestly does not know whether something's happening in this moment or whether you're just imagining it happening. So when you understand this amazing power you have, you can be rehearsing. And I'm not talking obsessively, but you can do these things in your mind. You've got this amazing playground up there. It's like you're sitting behind a control screen. Because if you think about the world, it's like there aren't just windows inside your head that you're looking out and seeing the world. Everything on the outside is being transmitted into electrical impulses that are coming into you and then reformulating inside your mind. So it's like you're sitting in front of a TV screen up there. You're in that much control, but you're in there worried about all of these everyday, day-to-day existence things and not the big picture. You're not realizing these things are not so much happening to you as they're happening to you're the awareness that's watching this happening. And once you start to meditate, once you start to become aware, once you start getting that belief going, you start to realize, I'm the consciousness. I'm not this little tiny human being. I'm just this consciousness inside of a human body for whatever reason, why ever we're here, this great mystery, but I am this consciousness. And so it separates you from what's happening. You're not having a breakup. You're not being evicted. This body is, this existence is, but not you as the consciousness. And so I've worked with people that have had terminal cancer that have, when they understand finally, look, there may be something wrong with the car that I'm driving, but I'm just the driver. And at some point I may get out of this car and have to get into another one, but it's not over. It's not over. So anything you can do to get in control of your mind is a win. Anything you can do to stay in the present moment is a win. Anything you can do that's better than yesterday is a win. That's all it takes. We're all on different journeys. We're all going different speeds. So it doesn't matter. Progress is progress as long as you're aimed in the right direction and you're moving. I tell people it's like you're in a canoe and all your life you've been fighting and struggling and the water's been splashing in your face and you've been trying to paddle and you didn't realize you're facing the wrong direction. The current is taking you and you're fighting it. You're going the other direction. It's like drop the oars in the water, turn around in the boat and lay down and the boat's just going to go along. That's life. We make it into this thing where it's like, I don't want this. I do want this. I try to change people. You have to be the way I want you to be. I don't want this. So the future can't give me this. And you try to twist things to fit your very limited view of reality. It's like driving, you're in a car and you're watching the world through your windshield that you haven't washed in 20 years. So you're seeing reality through all of these one layer over the next of your past. So you're never seeing true reality. It's always through your experiences, through your beliefs, through the way you were raised. So you're only seeing a very small sliver. And to make it worse, then you try to twist that sliver into what you think you need to be happy. I mean, that's pretty much life in a nutshell. That's what we're doing every single day. I'm trying to twist the universe to be the way I want it. My partner, my experiences, my home life, everything. When you start to realize, it's been billions and billions of years to get to this moment. Those moments had nothing to do with you. The world was unfolding without you. It's not about you. We think, oh, this is all about us. This is all about me. Guess what? It took billions of years to get here. Billions and billions and trillions of things had to happen exactly right to get to this moment. And you're worried about you. It just makes no sense. It's totally a head game.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that because like when we think about it, we're thinking of ourselves as everything kind of like happening to us. And
Right?
we kind of twist those things to kind of fit our narrative, to kind of fit our belief system. So I appreciate you mentioning that. And I love also how you mentioned like the conscious being the driver of the vehicle. And I very much agree with that because like our consciousness is part of our like our physical body, but like at some point our physical body may not be here, but our consciousness will still kind of continue on, right? And so I really love that you mentioned that, and I feel like it's so much beneficial like for people to kind of get to know themselves like in that way, especially like if we're dreaming. And I'll be honest, like at one point in time, like years ago, I always thought meditation was cheesy, like when I was younger. And so like now though, like I've found like there's so much benefit in being able to connect with myself that way and push out these extraneous things that kind of pop in as you're mentioning. We're trying to meditate and like these random things. This my to-do list comes up or something like that. And there is like some mental gymnastics that kind of go into that focus, being able to really learn how to push those things out so you can like fully connect with yourself.
Yeah, you have a monkey in a cage up there, and we have let it run loose our entire life. So we think that the monkey's our master and that we're the slave and we bow down to it because that thing is just nuts. It throws crap everywhere. It goes crazy. It rattles the bars. It's very loud. And so you sit down to it. But when you start doing these things, you start to realize that you are in control. Over time, over our entire lives, we lose that ability because we don't connect to ourselves anymore. And that's what makes meditation so powerful, because since the beginning of time, in every religious text, I mean, everywhere, the kingdom is within. What does that mean? It means that everything is inside, but we're always looking outside. It's like, so if I told you go outside and into the outer world, I tell people we're in two worlds. There's the inner world, which is thoughts, ideas, emotions. Then there's the outer world, which is things and, physical matter and houses and that sort of thing. We are so screwed up that we think everything that matters is out there. So we think when I get the girl, I'm going to be happy. When I get the smaller butt, I'm going to be happy. When I get the new car, the job, whatever. When in reality, happiness is one of those things that are an inner game. Like you can't, if I said, go out and buy me a pound of happiness, where are you going to go? Go get me a couple of cans of confidence. How about some courage? Those are inner things. They don't exist out there. And so by looking at it, that's what we do. We spend our entire lives trying to twist the outer world to make it fit the way we think it needs to be to make us happy. Why not be happy first? Then everything on the outer world changes and we start to become happy. That's what you do. Those inner worlds, the inner and outer world are connected because, and you know this, it's like somebody walks up to you in the outer world, your boss, and they say, wow, are you sick? You really look like crap today. What happens? You take it right in the inner world. You're upset. You're mad. You're like, what's wrong with me? What do I look like? Oh my God, it's my face. Am I sweaty? What? You start doing all of these inner gymnastics. The same thing is true because of that connection. 99.9% of humanity is using it that way, which is outer world affects the inner. But because they're connected, just by logic, you understand that the connection has to run both ways. What you're thinking is also making things happen in the outer world. That's why people that are so negative are bringing negative things to them. Like I have an aunt that is so negative. She goes through the car wash to get the car wash, and all of a sudden the window somehow comes down, fills the entire car with soap bubbles. Who does that happen to? You never hear that story happening to somebody, but she's always sick with everything that's going around. Like her and her husband are negative. So it's like a negativity vortex. You're living in it. You're creating it. You are focusing on it. And so you're manifesting it. And that's pretty much what we're doing. We are manifesting all the things we don't want because we're so obsessed with thinking about them all the time and worrying about them and putting emotion behind them. It's like, you have 50,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. So if I said, watch your thoughts, you're going to say you're crazy. It's not possible. But when I say, watch the thoughts that matter, that's the thoughts with emotion behind them. Those are the ones that can change your life. That's why when you're really courageous, when you're really confident, when you're really motivated for something, that can change your life. So on the same token, what's happening? You're really worried about stuff. You're really thinking all these things you don't want to happen. Oh God, if she does this, I'll never be able to live. That's what we do. So we're just bringing more and more of that. And so anything we can do to open up our ability to see our true selves, to kind of look in the mirror and, see the outer world is a mirror. It's reflecting to us, whatever we are inside. So the more you change yourself, it's not about changing each other. It's not about changing the world. That's why we're in wars all the time. That's why everybody hates each other, because we all think to change the world, we have to go out there and forcibly change everyone. Yeah. And it's like, you change yourself first. Then the people around you start to change because they're motivated. They're inspired. It's like, what's happening? This is amazing. They start to change, and then people around them change. And that's how we make this huge impact, by just working on ourselves. And nobody wants to do that. We want to strong arm everyone else. We want everything to be our way. When you kind of realize finally, look, it doesn't have to be my way. The world is unfolding. It's taken billions of years to get here. And if I don't like this moment, does that make any sense at all? How can I possibly say I don't like this? Like, I have nothing to do with it, right? How can I say that? Now, it doesn't mean you can't change something if you're in a situation that isn't healthy or that you don't like. That's one thing. But by saying, I'm going on a picnic today, and it's my day off, and it's raining. Now my day is ruined. What's happening? I don't understand. God hates me. I was good all week. Why is this happening to me? And I know people that do that. They've just turned their day off into this misery because of what they're focusing on, the lack instead of the abundance, what I don't have instead of the gratitude. It's like, it's all a mind game. You just have to learn, how to kind of play it.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that, actually, because like sometimes I know like we'll have those days where it just feels like every little thing grinds our gears, and then we have the worst day. And I like that you mentioned, though, when we have like some of these like things like happen to us, and we're so focused on it that we're just so angry. And a lot of times that's kind of like when I feel like we have kind of those days where it just feels like every little thing starts to bug us. It's like we have this one big thing, and then like every little thing after that, we just find ourselves irritated, frustrated by, and then we're like, oh my God, why is this the worst day ever? Like, of course, like, what's the next thing? And it's funny because it's like my mom and my grandmother in particular, they were kind of like that vortex of negativity that you were mentioning. Very frustrated, like they vent to one another and like, why are things like this? Oh my God, the world's going to hell, da 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 da. And so like, I think more so now, my grandmother's passed some years ago, but my mom now, like after she's like worked on herself, become more self-aware, has kind of like learned to look at those positive things, because we're so focused on like the negative. And it's sometimes people are like, well, that just sounds kind of cheesy, da da da. But really there is positive, but we're so ingrained, like we're so focused on the negative things that are happening to us. And that then that becomes, that's all we can think about. And as you're mentioning, then we start projecting it. And then the people around us get frustrated, they get annoyed. And so I feel like if we are focusing like on that whole glass half full analogy, it might seem corny, but it really is true. If we are focusing on the positive, and we're like in this like positive energy, this positive mindset, it expands and it projects to everyone. And so it really is true.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. My mom was the same way, and she isn't anymore, just because I think the influence of learning all about what I teach and about the mind, but it doesn't have to be me. It can be anybody who teaches you, the right steps, and it's not her fault. It's not your mother's fault either, because they were raised by a parent who didn't understand it. It's not like you can't teach somebody something if you don't know it. I mean, it's like, how is that possible? They're learning. When I was a kid, I didn't know it either. And now I have this great ability to be able to teach my mother, to teach my aunts, to teach people, in the generation before me. I mean, life is so stressful, and it just gets more and more and more stressful. It doesn't ever alleviate, because it's more and more division, more and more worry. Everything is created to, they say, if it bleeds, it leads. That's for news. I mean, it's all negative. You don't ever see positive news stories. It's very rare. It's all the most negative stuff. And so we're living in that. And then you have a phone connected to you where you're seeing it 24/7. I mean, every time you're scrolling through stuff, you're seeing, even if it's just for a second, you scroll past it, it's still there. I mean, you're still living in that. So, the more you can get off of your devices, spend some time with yourself. You can't ever go wrong by an extra meditation session, by, a walk with yourself in nature, by playing with the dog, whatever that is. Because those are forms of meditation too. You don't have to just sit cross-legged in a cave somewhere. And that's the great thing I tell people. You don't have to buy a course. For me, you don't have to meditate in India. Everybody has this ability. It's inside of every one of us. It's just a switch that we need to understand how to operate. So there is help. There is hope. There is help and hope. And it's within yourself. I mean, you have to understand that nobody's coming to save you, that if you sit and wait for things to change, if you sit and wait for your dreams to come true, it's going to be over. Your life is going to be over, and you're going to look back and realize that you had the power. No matter what you think you're being held down, or the system, or you always hear that, the system, the man, this and that, whatever. At some point, you've got to trade in your victim story for a new story. You've got to trade in this idea that you're forged from your past, which of course your experiences made you, but you don't have to spend the rest of your life apologizing to yourself for them.
Exactly.
There has to be some point where you say, I am releasing what no longer serves me. What all these things from the past, I'm letting go. That's the easiest thing. There's zero that can happen from that. You can't do anything to change it. There is nothing that you can do positive. You can't do anything. That's easy to let go of. And the future is the other thing. It's like, you're worried about all these things that are never going to happen the way you think anyway. It's always gloom and doom, right? It's always your mind goes to the very first, like big negative thing. So spend a few minutes each day. Besides meditating, just go throughout your day being aware of the present moment more. You're driving in your car and, you're all of a sudden you're having an argument with your spouse in your head. And I know many people that do that. It's like you're literally having an argument in your head where you're acting out both parts. It's like, he's going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to tell him. It's like, are you serious? Like, it's never going to happen like that. But that's what you're doing. You've got this amazing machine, supercomputer, and you're using it for that. It's just amazing. Like, people don't understand the power that they have. And it's like you've been in a prison your whole life, and you're about to die, and you realize that the key to the cell's been in your pocket. And that's what's going on. I mean, no matter what you think the outer world is doing to you, liberation exists only within you. Nobody is going to come open the door. You've got to get out. You've got to do it. So, it takes some personal responsibility, but we didn't get where we are in a day. I've lost 30 pounds recently, but I gained 60 before that. I didn't gain 60 pounds in a day. I did it by eating ice cream and pizza and crap that I shouldn't be eating. And the same thing goes with the mind. We've been tossing in all these negatives for so long. If you're going to start turning this ship around, you have to start, be willing to spend some time with yourself and put in some positive work. So I think what you said was great. I mean, and you're right. People think, positive thinking. Yeah, positive thinking isn't going to work like if your house is on fire and you're sitting there, I'm going to be positive while the house burns down around you. But if you're doing it to get through your daily day, because you hit your toe in the morning, the whole day can spiral from that moment. Yeah. It's like I hit the toe, I'm cussing, I'm mad. Now I go in the bathroom, I'm brushing my teeth, and I got my clothes on, and somehow the toothpaste squirts all over my shirt. Now I got to change my shirt. I'm mad about that. That's what happens. And it goes from the next to the next to the next. It can literally, the whole day can collapse.
Yes.
Just by what you're thinking. So just becoming aware, just bring a little awareness to your day. It'll change everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we always have to remember that, as we're mentioning, we are in charge of our own narratives, and we need to challenge our beliefs. We are in charge of our beliefs and how they affect us. We may not be able to control, of course, the external factors, what they call the circle of control, and what other people are thinking, how they're perceiving us, but we can be our own advocate. And I like how you mentioned the changing core beliefs, because of course there's so many different things that are also generational until that one person decides to say, hey, I'm going to change this. And that can be really hard. Change is hard. And I know in my own family, there's often been, oh, well, that's just how it was always done. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But why can't we change that? And I think humans in general, we want to feel comfortable. It's hard to feel uncomfortable, but that's how good changes happen. That's how big things can happen to you. Positive things can happen to you by making those changes. We just have to step out of our comfort zone. And I like how you also mentioned the news, and more so ever than before. We have a device in our pocket. We're on social media. We're looking at the news and we're ingesting that. And I know in my own family, I remember hearing even growing up, well, this thing was on the news, or you hear about that. And of course, it's going to be all those negative things on the news, right? Because rarely do we hear something on the news that's positive. And so we're kind of coming from this mindset of oh my gosh, the world is a fearful place. And it makes us not even want to step out our front door in the morning. And so I think that's, as you're mentioning, kind of taking that step back, getting present with ourselves, and going even on a hike, going out in nature to kind of have that disconnect, and kind of coming back into yourself is so important.
Yeah, when you do anything that allows you to make that connection, and I'm talking meditation, hiking, walking, playing with the dog, what happens, I find, is the next time something dramatic happens. And so, say you have a family member that you always fight with, say over politics or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm saying you, I'm just saying anyone. Now, this happens. Now, she starts to say something. Normally, you get sucked into it. You're arguing with her, and it could be a day, it could be a 2 days before you even realize you got sucked into this, right? What happens is when you start becoming aware, when you start meditating, when you start bringing a present moment awareness to your life, the next time those big moments happen, all of a sudden it seems like it's in slow motion and you are now in a much better power position because instead of being on the back foot where something happens and you're reacting to it, now what are you going to do? Everything slows down. And because you've been putting breaks in that tape, that old tape that's up in your mind, every time you're bringing back your focus, every time you're doing something, meditation, you're doing something positive, you're kind of putting breaks in that old rusty tape. And it's not so easy for the needle to go back into the grooves anymore because you're kind of wearing your new grooves because it's so easy because we're so complacent. We're in such a comfort zone that it's like they put the record on, automatically the record goes right into the groove. So you're making new grooves in your life. If you're doing the same thing you do every day and expecting things to be different, I mean, think about how crazy it is. You have to start doing things that you don't normally do or that are slightly different. If you get up every morning and do the same routine, go to the bathroom, do this, get your coffee, drink out of the same cup, drive to work the same way, break that up because every time you do that, the next time something big and dramatic happens, you start to create space. Now it happens and you start to go, okay, is this worth my peace? That's the only question you have to ask. Is this situation, is me being right? Is me winning in this argument? Is me going into this? Is this worth my peace? And I can tell you 99.99% of the time for any of it I've ever talked to, including myself, it's no. And so that ability to all of a sudden things seem to slow down. They call it the zone. I mean, it really does happen because now you've removed this whatever windshield block you've got where you're seeing reality more for what it is. And so you don't get sucked into it. And that's how you literally, change isn't enough. You want to be the caterpillar that becomes the butterfly. You can't go back. Once that metamorphosis, once that transformation has happened, so many people, even me early on, it's like you do something and you're doing great and you slip back into it. And then you go on a diet and you lose 10 pounds and then you slip back on it and you gain 15. It's like, that's what we do in life. We get ahead slightly, we fall back farther. By doing this, it's like you're knocking one by one these little things out. You're driving, the guy in front of you, this is a Michael Singer thing, the spiritual teacher, but I love this. You're driving, the guy in front of you driving slow. And what are you doing? Because if you're back there going, God darn it, man, you're yelling, right? He's obliviously driving and you're back there arguing. Let it go. Because that little bit of focus coming back is going to help you later. If it's your day off, like I said, and it's raining and you're mad, let it go. Those are easy things. Those are not hard issues. The big things are going to take more. But once you get rid of the little things and that energy comes back, now you've got so much more energy to tackle when those red flags come up and you're meditating and all of a sudden you're overwhelmed with this thought of whatever, you didn't talk to your grandmother before she passed or something. That is much easier to deal with now because you've kind of got rid of the low-hanging fruit. You've let this focus return home and it builds up. I mean, I tell people all the time, don't ever think what you're doing is futile, that it's just like, what is this possibly doing? Every time, if you meditate for 5 minutes and 50 times you pull back your focus, you're building that muscle, not a muscle, but focus muscle into a tremendous thing. Because you're giving yourself this ability to focus where it really matters and not let your mind take you where it wants to go, which is, oh, do I look fat today? Or, you know what I mean? Oh, I shouldn't have had that pizza last night. That's what your mind will do to kind of try to make you feel comfortable because it's what you're used to. It's only doing the same old thing. As soon as you give it a new job, your mind will do it. I mean, it's like that monkey in the cage is completely trainable. We just don't realize it. We think, like I said, that we are the slave to that monkey and we can get that thing trained. So it scares the hell out of us most of the time. That's why we won't stand up against it because, most of the time it's a very scary thing because it will use all of the things against you that that no one else knows. There are things in our lives where we've done something we're embarrassed by, or we think if anybody knew this thing, it would just destroy me, right? Guess what your mind will use against you at the earliest opportunity? It's going to use that because it really will. Think about it. Like I said, people don't commit suicide without their mind telling them to. That is how your mind can literally end you.
Yeah.
It can end you if you will allow it to. So once you realize I'm in control here, screw this thing, I am in control, and I'm going to take my control back, everything changes because you're not some pitiful, small little thing with no power. You're this amazing person. You can manifest your life, and you're manifesting all the crap you don't want because you think you're small. You're playing your life small. You're worried about everyone else. Who cares? Like I said, you're on a rock hurtling through space and you're worried about this stuff. Every once in a while, I'll think of that. Like if I'm doing something really, that just seems like just too much. It's like I am on a giant rock that is hurtling through outer space right now. And I could be anywhere else in the universe and there's nothing. It's just vast, open emptiness as far as we know right now. But I'm on a planet where, my God, I can do everything. I can be anything. I have everything I could possibly want. And I'm worried about the dumbest crap. I'm worried about, like, seriously, what color my shoes are and what the neighbors are going to think. One of the biggest things you can ever let go is the idea of what other people think. Like their idea of me is not my business. It's like, think what you want. You're never going to change it. Some people are going to love you. Some people are going to hate you. And none of it has anything to do with you. It's completely, we label everything. Not to go down another road here, but it's like we label everything. You see a tree, a pine tree, and in your mind it's now a pine tree. You don't see an individual tree anymore. We label everything. We do the same thing with people. She's a bitch. He's a drunk. She's a this. Seriously, right? You might have saw this guy drinking and he was out of his mind once. He's never even drank before. His dad died or something. You saw him one night, but in your mind, he's labeled as a drunk. The lady that you think is a bitch, maybe, she was standing up for herself for the first time. But again, you only saw part of the story. Right. And that's the problem. You only see a tiny sliver of what's actually happening, but you make up all these decisions in your mind about the way things are, about the way people are. And then you no longer see them. The next time you see that guy, there's the drunk. There's the pine tree. There's the car. None of it is individual anymore. It's just this list of things that you've made inside your mind to make you more comfortable.
Gosh, that's so true. And I was just thinking about that. It's something that, of course, I feel like for many people, even for me, like it's a work in progress. Like, and a lot of times it's a natural inclination to be like, oh my God, what does so-and-so think about me? Da, da, da. But it's so true. Like we can't control like what people think of us or how they perceive us. All of us are making assumptions and judgments on autopilot every single day. And so it is important to keep in mind that like we are like thinking about someone like and how they perceive us. We can't control that. They're only seeing like a very, very small sliver. They're not seeing the whole big picture. And that, as we're mentioning, we don't know like that person's whole story. And so I think that's something we always have to keep in mind, even though it is challenging. It's always like, it's a human instinct. So I appreciate that you mentioned that because for me, I know like I am bothered less by it. And so sometimes like I'll be faced with something and I'm like, voices you're mentioning kind of starts to creep in. Like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like, they probably thought like, oh my gosh, I sounded like an idiot or something like that. But I'm like, you know what? Who cares? Like, like I try to push that voice back. Like, you know what? Who cares if they thought that? Whatever.
Yeah, you're giving
like,
your power.
They haven't seen the progress that I've made. And so I have to kind of dial that back. And so I hope for like our listeners, like who are maybe they're like, no matter where you are on your journey to like care less about what people think. It's easier said than done, of course, but like there's a lot of work. And I feel like there's a way to kind of pull back from it. Whenever that voice kind of comes in, that little self-doubt comes in and try and discourage us. But yeah, so this has been such an amazing conversation. But before we close out, can you tell us where people can go to learn more about your work and the programs that you offer?
Yeah, the easiest thing is to go to my website. It's brentwebb.com, BRENTWEBB.com. And like I said, I don't have many core. There's a few things there for people who want to go deeper, but I've always been one to say, you can learn from me. I want people to learn from me. You don't have to buy anything. There are things, like I said, if people want to go deeper, faster, they want to get rid of the learning curve, but everything you need is already in you. And, it's like we keep giving our power away. And that's what we do when we worry about what other people think. It's like you're giving your power to someone else to hold over you. And that's why you can't change your life. So brentwebb.com. And also one of the things I've done, we talk about meditation a lot. I am a big proponent of it. I talk about it everywhere I go because I don't think I could be where I am today without it, because that connection, I made to myself years ago is really what you can ask yourself questions and go into meditation and come out with the answer. Where did that come from? You're connected to universal consciousness. That's where it came from. But you don't, when it first happens, you're blown away. Like, oh my God, how can I know this? It's because you're connected to all of that. So meditation is a game changer. what I've done is I put together a little free mini course, and it's a meditation journal that gives the instructions on how to do my meditation, a couple of guided meditation videos. But anyway, if you go to meditationminicourse.com, so it's all one word, meditationminicourse.com, you just put in your email and your name, and you'll be able to download your free copy. And then you'll also get, I do a newsletter once a week that just kind of teaches you these actionable steps. You don't have to buy anything, just kind of, it's me every week giving you mind hacks and brain tricks to get in control of your mind. So brentwebb.com, meditationminicourse.com, those are the best places.
Awesome. I'll be sure I get those in the show notes, and I'm going to check it out as well, because I always feel like I can be improving my meditation practices. So thank you for that. But it's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved the conversation, and I feel like our listeners will love it as well. There's so many actionable insights and tips, and I'm super excited for everyone to hear it.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been great. And if you need me again, you know where I am.
Awesome. Sounds good. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.